Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are here. Q4 earnings just happened for Palantir, and it is time to break it down. We did a live stream this morning with Sachin Sharma and Chris Patel. We had over 1,000 people show up to it, guys. And so first of all, for all the subscribers who showed up, it really means the world. I did not expect 1,000 people, considering that Tom Nash was streaming with Sasha and Jackson from Palantir Vision were streaming. Both awesome channels, awesome guys. I honestly expected we were going to get 100 people. And that's not because I didn't have faith in the community. That's just because it was like, I don't know if people are actually going to show up. And I got on the call. Funny story, 6:45. The call was supposed to start at 6:50. That's when I had it scheduled. Slept at 2 a.m. last night. Guys, I haven't slept all week. I literally haven't slept all week because so many things have been going on, just personal life, professional life. So literally, I finally got on the bed last night at 2 a.m. I was like, I need to be up early because it's like, I got to do this earnings. Like, this is a big deal. So I told my dad, I was like, Dad, just make sure I get up by 6:45. And my dad had no idea what I was doing. He was like, why do I need to wake up so early in the morning? And I was like, well, I'm doing this live stream on YouTube. And he was just like, about what? And I was like, it's this company that like I care about. And he was like, who are you doing this? I was like, there's this guy from Malaysia and this guy from New York. That's Sachin and Chris. And he just looked at me like, okay. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sleep now. And then I get a phone call at 6:45 saying, hey, I just calling to make sure you're up. And I was like knocked out, and I had like 17 alarms, so like I shouldn't have been knocked out, but for some reason that phone call woke me up. And when I picked up the phone, I was like, oh yeah, I'm awake. And I looked at the thing, it was like 6:45. I'm like, in 5 minutes I have to go live on YouTube. So then I get to the computer, I set everything up, and you know, I'm the bed's really close to it, so I just wash my face real quick and I get on it. And then Sachin is already there, and he's like, there's 150 people or waiting. And I'm like, there's 150 people waiting at 6:48. Like, what? Like, I did not expect that at all. So I think this community is growing. I have not seen a community cover Palantir like it has been covered today, or cover earnings. I have not seen a community cover their growth stocks earnings the way the Palantir community covered it today on YouTube and Twitter. And I think the winners are the community and the amount of knowledge we get to spread around the stock. So let's get into what happened in earnings. And yes, I'm wearing the hat. Is this a good look? I was like, let's fix it up. Let's let the hair fly by. Maybe it looks kind of cool with the hoodie. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Let's get into the numbers. Okay, so first of all, top level thoughts. I thought this earnings was actually really good. I mean, I know a lot of people have said that it was bad. They could have done better. Like, yes, they could have done better. But for anyone saying it's bad, no, I do not think this earnings was bad at all. The reason the stock price fell, and we're going to talk about the stock prices in a minute, is because they missed on earnings. And if you guys look at the entire market today, blood. I mean, ARK is down 5%. Palantir is big in ARK. Google went from like 27.50 to like 26, like everything is red today. So on top of that, obviously Palantir is going to fall. But outside of that, I don't think what happened in the earnings call justified the stock price. But again, that's been the scenario with everything that's been going on. Snapchat fell 50%, then it's up 60% after. Like, none of it makes any sense at all. Google was up to 3,100 because of amazing earnings and the split news. Now it's back down to where it was trading even lower than before it had its rally. So like, none of this stuff in this market makes sense right now. I'll talk a little bit more about the stock price later. But I don't think the stock price is a reflection of what actually happened during earnings. 41% total revenue growth, 47% governmental revenue growth, 34% commercial revenue growth. Top of the line already, I thought that was amazing. 102% U.S. commercial revenue growth, phenomenal. 473 million adjusted operating margin, 424 million free cash flow, and 78% GAAP operating margin. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. Q4 revenues were $433 million. They were projecting $418 million. So they beat revenues by $18 million. That was a really good thing. And they ultimately were able to capitalize on the fact that they pretty much sandbagged their numbers. Now, and Sachin was saying if they get to 450, 460, that's when the market's really going to like it. They're not at the growth inflection point. We're going to talk about why for a variety of reasons for them to put up those types of numbers. But they ended the year with $1.5 billion in revenue, which I think is phenomenal. Now, they had a loss of $59 million, which is a slight miss. And the Q4 gross margins were, again, 80%, which for anyone who still thinks it's a consulting firm, I don't know a consulting firm that have 80% gross margins. So overall, not bad. Revenue, again, is up 41% to $1.5 billion, adjusted free cash flow margin of 28%. Revenue, they grew year over year at 41%. They are projecting to grow till 2025, 30% year over year. This is what I mean by in terms of sandbagging. Like, the growth points for Palantir are going to be similar to almost the growth points for Tesla when it started growing 40, 50, 60%. Like, if Palantir puts up another year in 2022, not from 41% to like 46%, we're getting close to 50. Then 2023, we get to 50%, 55. That's when we're going to start to see a really big inflection happen. But I mean, 41% year over year growth does not happen in most companies. These are startup level numbers, as Sean, the former IBM employee that I interviewed on a podcast, said. These are not numbers that you put up by that big company. I mean, you're lucky if you're a big company to get like 15 to 20% year over year growth. Commercial momentum. Their commercial stuff is just, it's really interesting. Q1 2021, 19% year over year growth, 28% next quarter, 37% next quarter, 47% Q4 2021 compared to Q4 2020 growth. Their commercial customer count is up from 49 full year 2020 to 147. That means they doubled at a 200% rate the amount of commercial clients they have. This doesn't happen easily. This is not happening in traditional B2B at the levels at which it's happening. 200% year over year growth is insane for commercial clients, especially given the type of technology you have and given the fact that they don't have a real sales force. Karp even mentioned in the call that mostly the Foundry product has been the sales force over the past year, and that's why they're hiring 200 salespeople, which is really important to understand. Now, their commercial overall is up 113%, their commercial international is up 103%, and their commercial in the US is up 150%. So even if governmental growth is slowing down, the commercial market is where they need to be, and they are exponentially expanding in the commercial space. Okay, governmental growth. So their full year 2021 governmental revenue was 47%, which was phenomenal. Their net dollar retention, which is basically it measures how much your annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue has grown or shrunk over time by factoring in customer expansion. I'm reading that right definition. So it's a relationship between customer expansion and the amount of money you're getting out of those customers, was excellent at 146%. However, the number of governmental clients they had is flat. It stayed exactly the same as it was Q4 2020. When they had 90, Q4 2021 they had 90. So governmental number of clients it was flat, but they were able to get $8 million more in 2021 in terms of revenue from new governmental customers, which is also really important. Now, governmental growth slowing down, I don't think is the biggest deal in the world because ultimately you have to allocate your resources. I mean, either you're going to go for commercial, or you're going to go for government. Most of Wall Street hated that they're all in the government because government's a great business because it's guaranteed money, but it's not like the TAM of helping the world go to net zero because you're in the renewable energies industry, right? Like you obviously have to diversify. So I think government is important because it's money that's going to keep them afloat, and it's more and more contracts, and it's good to be in, working with the government and making sure things are ready, but it's not the single biggest thing I would focus on primarily because they're growing just so quickly. I mean, we're talking about 370% clients, 103% revenue when it comes to the commercial space. So we'll see if the governmental growth slows down. I don't expect it to, specifically because of them expanding in Germany and more governments simply opening up and digitizing now that COVID and lockdowns are starting to go away. We'll see what happens next quarter, but commercial growth is really what I care about the most because if they win the commercial sector, the government stuff is important. That can't go away, but that's what we've got to go for here. I mean, those are the big dogs that we're trying to. So let's get into the operating margins. This was the most interesting element of this entire earnings call. Their path to profitability seems like it's very near and on the way, at least within the next quarters or at least by the end of the year. The GAAP operating margin is the operating margin you have to report. This is the operating margin like that the government uses, public shareholders have to see. This is actually, are you making any money or are you not making any money? The adjusted operating margin is the amount of things you exclude because they're not really business expenses per se, and that can theoretically make you operationally profitable. So Palantir in quarter 4 of 2020 had a GAAP operating margin of negative 49%. By Q1 2021, that got down to 33% negative 39% Q2, negative 23 Q3, and negative 14 Q4 2021. Their adjusted operating margin, if you exclude stock-based compensation and some employer taxes, has been operationally profitable since Q4 2020. They were at 32%, then 34%, then 31%, then 30%, now 29%. So they are basically operating at a 30% adjusted operating margin, and eventually that needs to become a GAAP margin because then that's going to be real money off of $1.5 billion. So if they take $1.5 billion in rev, they still have a loss, but if you take away SBC and all the other stuff, they're making $500 million in profit. Their market cap is around $27 billion. So $500 million out of $27 billion, I believe that's like a 40-something X multiple. That's still expensive, but not as expensive as something like a Snowflake or some of the other companies you're thinking of. And it absolutely is justified, and the market will justify that. If they had real profits right now, I think this would be trading at a crazy, much higher rate, particularly because of the growth potential of Palantir, right? You have to buy into that growth story long term. So this is the most interesting thing. Now that they're at a 14% GAAP operating margin negative, they are getting closer and closer to actually being profitable. And what did Karp say in the call? We're going to analyze the call and do a lot on videos on that later. But he said, in response to a retail investor's question, or I believe it was a retail investor, we're not going to give out excessive stock-based compensation. He said, look, this is a one-time thing to get people into the door, and over time, that cost goes away, and that cost goes away from our business. And he was very clear that we as a business do not want to have excessive stock-based compensation. It does not philosophically align with our ideals, and we can't reach GAAP profit margins, right? The real profit margins we need to show to shareholders and anyone who wants to invest in the company that we're profitable if we have all this stock-based compensation. So that sort of justifies to me that if they're growing and if they're not going to be doing stock-based compensation at the level at which they're doing, which means they're not going to have excessive amounts of dilution, then there's a real path to profitability in a world in which they're growing exponentially. All right, so my final thoughts. Look, I think this is what it means to invest in a growth stock, in a growth company. Before earnings came out, a lot of the stuff that I was saying is I want to see what the company does. The stock price is the stock price. Like if we went from, what is it, 14 to like 16, that would have been great. That would have been awesome, but we're at 14 to 11. So it's like, okay, it's like, it's to me, it's just not a concern because the markets are the markets, algorithms are algorithms, macroeconomic dynamics are there, inflation is there, the whole market is down. I don't care about the stock price. I care about the company. If we were not growing at 41% year over year, if we were not adding 3 times the amount of commercial clients, if we were not expanding our net dollar retention, those are the things that would make me upset. The government stuff is one of the key negative things here, but again, I don't really see that as a negative because I think you have to allocate where you can allocate, and commercial seems like where they're trying to go for. So like, I think that's like, I give them a pass on that. They want to go for a commercial. And on top of that, you hear a lot of stuff in the call. Karp is saying like commercial revenue could double, or total revenue could double. He was saying that we're going to hire these salespeople, and a lot of these salespeople are going to ramp up our efforts. I'm going to do more reactions to his call, but a lot of the stuff he said in the call is like, when bad times are bad, it's good for Palantir. We have $2.3 billion on our balance sheet. Things go bad, we are there to solve the problem. So when things are good, it's going to be even greater for a company like Palantir. Investing in a growth stock means you invest in the story, and quarter after quarter, you see if that story is fundamentally changing. If that story is not fundamentally changing on the negative side, meaning there's something that's happening that's just not allowing them to grow, not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that, that's when you get worried. If the story is going and they're making progress, and there's a bunch of slides we didn't even talk about in the presentation where they're talking about all these like new innovations they launched and products they launched over the past year, if that's progressing and you keep seeing news every single day of all these deals they're doing, the stuff that I'm covering, then to me, the numbers are eventually going to follow that. There's going to be that magic inflection point moment. Is it next quarter, 2 quarters from now, 3 quarters from now, a year from now? We don't know. But what we do know is that they're doing what they have to do in order to be able to grow. The market's not going to be able to recognize that and definitely not give them the benefit of the doubt in this climate. But once this climate goes away, as this climate will go eventually, they are going to be seen as one of the most massively undervalued companies in the market, in my opinion, just given the level of growth they have, as long as that growth also continues to go. Yeah, those are my thoughts. In terms of my buys today, I picked up around 400 shares of Palantir, about $3,500. I reduced my average to $20.60. I'm at 2,060 shares now. So I bought about $3,500 of Palantir at around my average today. I got some in the 11s and I got most of it around 12.20, 12.30. So I loaded up the dip today. I was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to buy it. And it's not ridiculous as in like the market's ridiculous. It's more so like if they are putting up this much growth, at this point, I've got to just solidify my position even more. I wanted to get to 2,000 shares. We got that. I wanted to get my average into the low 20s. I'm getting close to that, hopefully under 20 soon. And, I saw this dip as an opportunity. It was at 13 and 14 for the past week or two. And I was waiting to go a little bit more deeper once it got 12. And once it got to 12 and a little bit below 12, I was like, all right, this is the time to go in. I see this as a 10x opportunity, in my opinion, at least, if not a 20x opportunity. And I think the potential for this, given the growth that is happening, is just absolutely phenomenal. So those are my thoughts. Those are my breakdown. There's a lot of content to cover. Karp just did an amazing call. There's stuff that they released. We got to go through this presentation a little bit more. So more videos will be coming out soon. Let me know what you guys want to hear in terms of your thoughts on this earning call. If I didn't answer any questions, leave them in the comments below and we'll work on them. And additionally, thank you to everyone who showed up in the call. 1,000 people showed up on the first stream. That means a lot to me, more than I can explain. And it was just really cool to have 1,000 people watching and caring and having that moment together. Karp dropping the F-bomb and all of us 2 times in the call, and all of us getting as a community to just enjoy that on this channel. It'll go down as a moment when we look on this 5 years from now, hopefully when we are a lot more wealthier because of just doing these investments at a time when most people aren't doing these investments, and looking back on that CEO knew what he was doing, and he was trying to emphasize with his language how serious this company is and how people just don't get it right now. So looking forward to your comments. We'll read them. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys for showing up to the stream. I'll see you in the next one.